We got another amazing article about a storied automotive manufacturer, Ferrari. We're breaking it down. There's an article in the Wall Street Journal today, the wild economics behind Ferrari's domination of the luxury car market. We've talked about Ferrari before. A lot of weird decisions going on. Doesn't seem to be affecting them financially. We're going to talk to someone who's owned a Ferrari,
and that's
on the
part
show
of
today.
part of.
We have Jordy Hayes here, former Ferrari owner, here to break it down for us. Jordy, I'll read you some of this.
It's amazing with my experience that I still love the brand.
Oh yeah, breaking down constantly, and you're like, but it's still goated.
It's goated.
It's amazing. They're beautiful. They own red. What more do you want?
Just like the way that we own green, they own red.
They own red. So with a list price of $3.7 million, Ferrari's new hypercar was revealed to the public in October with a twist. It wasn't available for sale. All 799 units of the low-slung, high-haunched F80 model, the most expensive production vehicle in Ferrari's history, had already been promised to top customers like Luc Poirier. The Montreal real estate entrepreneur already owns 42 Ferraris. He said he felt lucky to be allowed to buy yet another. To be chosen to buy Ferrari is, for one of their hypercars, is a true milestone for any collector.
Yep.
Money isn't enough to buy a top-of-the-range Ferrari. You need to be in a long-term relationship with the company. By leveraging the rabid fandom of its customers through the business model based on uber scarcity, the storied Italian company is enjoying a new golden age. Following an almost tenfold increase in the stock since its IPO a decade ago, Ferrari is now worth $90 billion. That's two figures.
Two figs.
That's two-figure AI robotics companies. You take two of them, you get a Ferrari. Making it the most valuable car company in Europe, despite delivering just 13,752 vehicles last year. So, Jordy, why don't you break down what their strategy is with these super restricted hypercars? How do you get one? Just break it down, make it
I've talked about, I don't think we've talked about this on the show that much. I know I've talked about it before on X, but Ferrari has this fantastic business model that's similar to every other luxury brand that you'd be familiar with: Hermes, Rolex, Patek, all these different companies. They basically make, no matter how much money you have in the world, if you want to buy these cars, watches, bags, etc., directly from the manufacturer, directly from the brand, you have to play their game. Now, every single brand has a different version of their game. There's plenty. You can look up online forums for every brand and see, what game did you have to play? And the game is basically spending money on things that you don't necessarily want to get the thing that you actually want. And so Ferrari, and Porsche does this as well. Every brand gets knocked for this because people say, I have 300 grand, I should be able to buy the GT3 RS. And Porsche, and what people don't realize is they're using these hyper exclusive cars as top of funnel marketing for every other car in their portfolio, or every other watch, or every other bag, or every other product that they make, right? And so in the case of Ferrari, has been playing this game for a very long time. It's been, the most desirable cars in the world for a very long time. They typically are making under 1,000 units of their most high profile, most desirable cars. And these are the cars that are actually investments. Every other car that they make, for the most part, depreciates massively, right? Nobody wants a 15-year-old Ferrari that was the entry model, right? These cars end up trading at 30, 40 grand. Like, you can actually pick them up for very little because they're unreliable and they're not, they
like a 360 Modena is fairly accessible, probably still almost 100K,
probably around there,
but it's like a 20-year-old car at this point, and it was an entry model at the time.
And so ultimately, if you want to eventually buy Ferrari hypercars, you have to go in there and you have to just start purchasing cars. You have to get a Roma. You probably now would have to get a Purosangue. You have to get, if you just
298 or 296.
And one of the challenges is that owners know you basically have to have some real stones, because nothing is guaranteed in the game. You can go in there and spend $5 million with Ferrari and still not get access to an F80 because you're not even close to being in there. And so Ferrari,
and it's not just that, you also have to lose money on options right?
Yeah.
You have to be, you can't just be walking in and saying, okay,
give me the base
every
model.
3 years I lease the base model.
Yeah.
No, it's like, come in, I'm customizing it. I'm creating a fleet. I'm a collector.
Yeah.
And the steel man of all this is that if it was just a one-click checkout on F80s, you would have maybe hedge funds coming in and like trading them, and they wouldn't actually go to collectors who promote the brand and live the brand. And when you see an F80 owner, you know that they're also going to have an SF90, an F50, an F40. They're going to have the whole. They're going to be able to tell the whole story of the brand. They're going to be a brand evangelist almost, and that does raise the profile of the brand, I think, as opposed to if it was known as like, Ferraris, they come out and then they just immediately get turned into financial assets. You never see them in the real world. No one ever drives them. They're just thrown in the plastic. They might as well be NFTs.
Yeah. And so Ferrari is unique as a manufacturer, because if you go to Porsche as an example, if you want to buy a GT3 RS, you probably have to buy a couple Taycans, a couple Macans, maybe a Cayenne. And the key is you can't just buy them and immediately sell them. You have to buy them, hold them for some amount of time, and then sell them back to or trade them into the original dealer that you work with. So your relationship is not actually with the manufacturer, it's with the dealer. And so Ferrari, what's different is not only can you have to buy the cars from them, and when you're ready to sell it back to the dealer so that they make their margin again on that vehicle. And they don't necessarily pay market. They're going to give you like kind of dealers often will make you a lowball offer. And so what's funny about Ferrari is they actually basically consider you to basically just be the custodian of that vehicle. So you can't even take your entry-level Ferrari and make it pink and do donuts in it. They will come after you.
They'll sue you.
There's a history of Ferrari suing their own customers, which is like unheard of, right? All traditional business advice is don't sue your customers. It just ends up,
And this is the opposite of Lamborghini, right?
Yeah, Lamborghini is like much more, kind of like wrap them, do whatever you want, shoot. There's that guy who got in trouble for like shooting that was like illegal. Yeah, but that wasn't with Lamborghini. I don't think Lamborghini had a problem with it. They're like, the law enforcement had an issue with it.
You put off-road tires on it? Maybe we'll just make a production version of that.
Yeah. And so Ferrari, Ferrari, the challenge is there is still, if they're making 800 F80s, there's still a ton of people out there that are buying lots of Romas and Purosangues and these other cars that are not getting access to those. And so the challenge now, and Doug DeMuro has a bunch of good content on this. The challenge now is people are saying, I've been losing, people were spending all this money to get an SF90, immediately losing 400 grand, and then they're still not getting the call from Ferrari. And Ferrari is picking their favorites, right?
Because the SF90 was unlimited production run. So it was still hard to get-ish, but
at the moment in 2021, interest rates were low. There's a lot more appetite to buy these crazy cars when you're getting a 3% interest.
And now
rate
I listened to a call-in on it was maybe like Dave Ramsey or something, but someone bought an SF90 to kind of flex, and they had financed it, and the payment was I think like $20K a month, and the guy had a business that was like making $20K a month, stopped making so much money. And he was like, it's important to my like brand, my personal brand for this company that I have a sports car. And so
don't want to be in those businesses.
Can't make the payment. Has to like move. And now if he sells the car, he paid $800K.
He would have to pay to trade it in.
Yeah, exactly. So he has like $400,000 of negative equity on the car. He's effectively bankrupt. And so people were saying like, maybe you have to like crash the car and get insurance or something. It's like,
but really even then, the insurance is going to say what's the replacement value of the vehicle.
Exactly.
So anyways,
really bad. Anyway,
bad situation.
Let me break
Ferrari,
down Ferrari.
Like to be clear, they have an actual list. So for background, I looked at buying a classic Ferrari dealer in 2020. At the beginning of last year, and spent a lot of time with this business that was based in Europe, and ultimately got to a point where the business was sitting on so much inventory. In the acquisition, you would have to absorb that inventory, and the Ferrari market last year was dipping on a lot of their classic models because there's not the same level of demand. So anyways, the whole, like, there's an entire Ferrari economy, both the direct dealer customer, but then also the secondary market, which is they all play into each other.
So don't buy a Ferrari. don't buy a Ferrari dealership, buy Ferrari stock.
Buy Ferrari
stock is doing great.
Stock is way up.
They're trading more than 40 billion higher than Volkswagen, which sold more than 9 million cars last year. Volkswagen's worth around 50 billion, I believe. Most of Europe's auto industry is plagued by a weak domestic market, costly transition to electric vehicles, and new competition in China. The chief executive officer of Ferrari, Benedetto Vigna, said in a recent interview in Maranello, we are not an automotive company. The city in northern Italy where Ferrari is based. We are a luxury company that is also doing cars.
That's the kind of thing that true enthusiasts will cringe and cry over, because they just want Ferrari to focus on making the most beautiful, performant, timeless cars.
Yes. With driver engagement and manual transmissions and naturally aspirated engines. And Ferrari's definitely moved away from that.
And it's a real risk, right? If you're a Porsche enthusiast, you can go get a manual 911T, not the ST or the ST or the Touring, or a GT3. They really are, and you can get into the brand at 120, 130K, something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, there's even other entry points with things like the Cayman and the Boxster. So, it's kind of like the baby 911 to get you in, and you get a little bit older one of those, and all of a sudden you're in the brand for 30K, 50K. And Ferrari just doesn't have that. But, it does lead it to be a more luxurious brand. You think of Ferrari as a cut above Porsche, and that's just the case. Yeah. And so at the time of Ferrari's IPO in 2015, many analysts were skeptical that a luxury business model would work for a car maker. The former CEO used to draw comparisons with Hermès, a parallel now widely accepted. The French fashion house limits supply of its coveted Birkin bags, leading to wait lists at its stores and a huge resale market. Is the same deal at Hermès. You need to buy a lot of things before you're invited to buy a Birkin, and they're very, very highly coveted. Customers buy all manner of other Hermès baubles to move up the list. Ferrari's blossoming into a luxury leader has restored the fortunes of founder Enzo Ferrari's son, Piero Ferrari, and Italy's Agnelli family, which took control of the company decades ago through its Fiat brand. In the IPO, both families retained stakes that are now worth billions of dollars. Another group that had profited from It's Ferrari's investments, savvy collectors. Most cars are famously depreciating assets, including most standard Ferraris, but the value of rare Ferraris has soared in recent years. LaFerrari is up at $3.4 million. According to Haggerty, a specialist auto insurer based in Traverse City, when the model was released in 2013, they only made 499 of them. Now, they might have made a few more. That's the thing with Ferrari. You never really know. And then they do special editions and they make a couple more. But still, very limited production run. And it was sold before options at 1.4 million. Now it's up at 3.8. So, fantastic ROI.
And so the Ferrari customer who's buying these more standard Ferraris, these mass-produced Ferraris, accepting that they're going to take a loss on them, is betting that they're going to get access to these premier cars that will then make them money if they hold them. But now the challenge is they've sold so many of the standard cars to people that were anticipating being able to get into that coveted top customer group that gets access to these cars. And so they're hitting this wall where they've now seen terrible sales on the Cylindri 12-cylinder car, because people are like, I'm not going to spend $700K on this car that's going to have terrible depreciation, and you're not even giving me confidence that I'm ever going to get into that F80 bucket.
Exactly. Yeah. So last spring, a Houston real estate broker bought one of Ferrari's much hyped Purosangue models. That's the SUV, the first four-door vehicle. The list price was close to $460K, but can approach $1 million with add-ons. So you're talking $1 million for an SUV that's not even a track-focused sports car. And so you really have to have money to spend. And when the broker flipped it, the dealership that had sold the car sued, saying that he was in breach of contract, giving it right of first refusal for 12 months after the sale. According to the plaintiff's petition, they recently settled without disclosing terms. And so, they were probably like, hey, how much profit did you make on that? Give us a piece of that and we'll call it even. But still, it's very aggressive with your customers. Anyone with a few $100K can buy a regular Ferrari as long as they're willing to wait a couple years. While standard models aren't subject to strictly limited runs, the company still lives by Enzo Ferrari's scarcity dictum. Ferrari will always deliver one less car than the market demands. Smart. Limited edition Ferraris are even scarcer. You can't just walk into your local showroom and buy one. These range from special versions of regular models to the design-oriented Icona series, which is your favorite. That's the SP1, SP2, SP3. Most exclusively once-in-a-decade hypercars like LaFerrari and F80. And so a lot of people were also upset about not being able to get SP3 allocations. Yep. And so it's like, yes, I get it that you do the hypercar, the F80, the F50, the LaFerrari, the Enzo every 10 years. Maybe I'm not on that list, but can we do SP3 for me? Because that's just like a fantastic car. And like, it's in the $1 million range.
SP3 seems much more likely to be an investment car, an investment asset.
Over the F80.
Even potentially over the F80.
Interesting.
In my view.
It's an odd positioning because it's this new bucket of hypercars from Ferrari, but it had the same problems where it was like very, very limited run and very difficult to get into. And so frustrated a lot of people that were sitting on SF90s down 400K.
Yeah, so it's the same thing as a watch market. There's a lot of reason to just go buy the car that you actually want with Ferrari, but that decreases demand at the dealership level for Ferrari, right? If people are saying, oh, I want, I'm just going to go buy a LaFerrari on the secondary market, and they can go to someone like Sotheby's and get that car.
There's actually an anecdote here from John Otto, who bought his first Ferrari in the 1980s after receiving an inheritance. Nice. Nepo. He got frustrated when he failed to get on the ladder for the Ferrari Enzo, a hypercar that preceded the LaFerrari. The retired entrepreneur who set up a business in Florida offering supercar test drives no longer owns the brand. Even though I had bought 5 or 6 Ferraris and several marquee Ferraris over the decade, I couldn't find a dealer that was willing to sell me one. I hadn't quite been as vigilant with my purchases or as aggressive as others. So opaque and difficult.
You go from being, if you're somebody who's stretching to get a car, you will likely get smoked by somebody who's just saying, I'll buy it. Like there's people that would come in and say like, what are the 3 cars that you need to move right now? Okay, I just bought them. Make sure that I'm next in line for the car that I actually want.
Here's an interesting comp. When Porsche launched its IPO in 2022, it leaned heavily into comparisons with Ferrari, but the stock has fallen by almost a third since its debut amid challenges in China and a botched electric vehicle strategy. This is the Taycan and now the Macan EV. And Ferrari shipped, what was the number? So Ferrari shipped, it was like 1,000 cars, right? Ferrari shipped 13,750 vehicles.
Yep.
Porsche shipped 310,000 cars last year. The German sports car maker is too big to keep Ferrari style wait lists, except for a few models. That's the GT3 RS that you mentioned. At the extreme, smaller supercar brands struggle to deliver as steady a stream of new vehicles as Ferrari, leading to cash crunches. Aston Martin shares have lost more than 95% of their value since its 2018 IPO. Bahrain's sovereign wealth funds took full control of McLaren last year after a period of heavy losses. And so McLaren has a similar strategy where they did the F1, the P1, and now the W1. And so in theory, you should be saying, hey, I should get a 720S, I should get a 650, I should be on the McLaren ladder because I'll get up into those super hypercars. But then they also launched the Speedtail and a bunch of other like hypercars, but then they were like, it's not the real hypercar, the real hypercar is coming, it's the W1, it's the F1, it's the P1. And so people got kind of confused, and whenever there's that confusion, it leads to brand degradation, in my opinion.
Totally.
And so let's go to some reactions and people talking about Ferrari. Morgan Housel posts a wild stat. And we mentioned this. Ferrari sold 13,000 cars last year, market cap 90 billion. Volkswagen sold 9 million cars last year, market cap 40 billion. And so it's not what you sell, it's how you sell it. And as a reminder, Volkswagen owns Lamborghini, Bentley, Porsche, and Bugatti. I think Porsche is independent. I think you might be wrong there, right? Anyway, there's a lot of Ferrari fans in the tech world. Tom Mueller says Ferrari Friday, and he posts a beautiful photo of a Ferrari that he has. He also has an F80 or an F40. I wonder if he's going to get the F80. He's been a big fan. Palantir, friend of the show, is also sponsoring Ferrari. And the Palantir, Praying for Exit says, the Palantir Ferrari collab goes unreasonably hard. Look at this. Read the other sponsors on the Ferrari team. It's all killers. AWS, Palantir, Shell, Celsius,
Pirelli, Celsius, the energy drink company, Santander, and HCL software, which I
don't know that one,
but
very cool. So
we have some friends that are in the midst of doing a F1 deal, and we cannot wait to share it on the show. It's one of the best things that you can do if you like going to F1.
Oh yeah,
is just sponsor a team.
Yeah, I mean, Eight Sleep did that, right? I mean, they sponsored. They sponsored
the
F1,
partnership with Leclerc
is fantastic.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And so David Senra, Founders Podcast, has a post here from Enzo Ferrari. He kept the main thing. Enzo Ferrari in front of his Maranello factory. I don't care if the door gaps are straight. When the driver steps on the gas, I want him to be scared for his life. I love that. It's fantastic. You know, Enzo was a master of keeping the important thing, the main thing. What is Ferrari about? It's about acceleration, driver engagement, the experience of driving the car. People will put up with rough edges to get the best driving experience. And that's exactly what Peter Thiel did in 2005 when he did the Gumball. He did the Gumball 3000 in a drop-top Ferrari. And you'll love to see it.
Doing it in a drop top is great.
It's so cool. A lot of great tech founders and investors
have
done the
Gumball. Love how he's posing
Gumball.
with a sheriff there.
Yeah, I don't know who that is, but what a great historical post. What a great little bit of Silicon Valley lore.
That sheriff is now JD Vance.
Let's go to Abhishek Kumar. He says, AI automation outsourcing, meanwhile Ferrari. There are trees that live inside the factory. It is labor intensive, and the level of automation is pretty low, and it's not the most scalable. And I bring this out because this layout gives an incredible flexibility to make design choices that optimizes the car rather than the manufacturing process.
Yeah.
This is quite distinct from most car companies. So super handmade heritage. Obviously, they're using tons of tooling now, but not all about AI automation outsourcing. That they're not worried about going to China and reducing COGS a little bit. They have very high margins, clearly from the market cap, but you're getting a different product. You're getting something that's closer to a hand-built, coach-built vehicle. But we've been comparing the car market to the watch market for a long time throughout this entire piece, and so we wanted to tell you about Bezel. You can shop over 22,500 luxury watches on Bezel. They're all fully authenticated in-house by Bezel's team of experts. And Jordy, I wanted to put you on the spot. You said you were interested in picking up a Cartier tank. I got 4 for you right here. I want to let you know, which one would you pick out of these 4 if you had to pick one?
I found another one on there. It's on my saves. We'll have to show it the next episode. But I would go with something a little bit more vintage.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Gold or silver? What are you thinking?
I feel like the gold is more classic.
Yeah.
But
with the tank, it works with that.
It works with the tank. Yeah.
So
for us Irishmen.
Yeah. But tank is a fantastic watch. Very iconic design. I love about it. Louis Cartier made the decision to alter the Roman numerals on the dial. So it goes Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, and then instead of the 4 being the IV, it's just 4 I's. Which isn't how you represent the number 4 in Roman numerals, but it creates more visual balance with the 8 on the other side of the dial.
That's wild.
And so I thought it was a really cool little subtle design touch. And there's a bunch of those in the Cartier tank. So if you're looking to pick up a dress watch, I think the Cartier tank is a fantastic choice. So go head over to Bezel and check it out.